Really good at this. Well, let's see if this is actually going to do anything. Comes the key thing. There we go. Hopefully this is working. Hopefully this is working. Hopefully I'll get some people coming in now. We'll do our usual bit before everything kicks off to give everybody a chance to come in. We're just having a bit of a try of something different. Hopefully this is all going to work. Hopefully we'll get some people in a minute as well. Just let's make sure. So where has everybody gone? Where's everybody gone? There we go. So the feed's coming through all right. Got a couple of bits and pieces going. Well, we've got a couple of minutes. We might as well crack on and just get rocking and rolling and see what kind of happens here. Guys, gals, and the flu. It's been a few months. It's been quite some time, but we are back. It is Wednesday night. I'm here on YouTube for once. Ooh, shiny technology. My name is Anthony Russell. I'm the man behind Banners on the Wall and have been for the last 10 years for my sins. But you join us at the dawning of British ice hockey. We are a week away. The Cardiff Devils have already started in CHW. What's current stream? We cover everywhere across Britain's National Ice Hockey League structure. We do focus on the national division. That is our bread and butter. But of course, as always, we will keep our eyes on Division 1 and Division 2 in the north. And in the going to go for 8 o'clock. We've had a few bits and pieces. A few bits and pieces go wrong since this evening, including needing to stick this on my knee. I've managed to unfortunately to get headbutted right in the sweet spot of my knee by my knee. He just hit me just in the sweet spot. But we're back. The fridge is back. The word of the week on the fridge is finally. Finally, we are allowed back into ice rinks this weekend. NIHL related. It is going to be a blast. I cannot wait. So have to wait until Saturday the 11th, but we have games coming up this weekend. It is going to be a whale of a time. It's going to be tons and tons of fun. And ultimately, what we're wanting is for all we're doing this evening is we are completely freewheeling it, folks. Now, the joy of YouTube is that somewhere, probably here, I don't know where I'm pointing. I don't do YouTube very often. But somewhere probably along here will be the chat function, which for me, probably a little bit better on YouTube than it is on Twitter. So like I say, tonight is a bit of an experiment. It's day one back. We have teams to talk about. We've got player signings to talk about. But basically, if you're here and you're in the chat, stick in what you want to talk about. We are just going to freewheel it for about half an hour, 45 minutes like we usually do to talk about tons and tons. So you chuck in what you want to talk about in the chat. We'll pick it up. We'll talk about looking at expanding a bit. There's extras like guests and the like and stuff. I'll be coming through loud and clear. Can you hear us? That's the big thing. Certainly, I know the optimization I probably need to make to the setup because, like I said, hopefully this is going to be all right. Either way, though, this coming weekend we do have some fixtures actually happening in the National Ice Hockey League as pre-season gets underway. And if you're going to any of the games, do please let me know. Of course, this the last little while was the phone on standby in place of the big blue tablet, which has been a bit ropey. But we will get the first look this weekend, of course, at the Leeds Knights. The Chiefs name dropped. The Leeds organisation bought by Steve Nell, who will be operating them this year, and assumingly beyond. But what we will end up seeing is the meeting of the two minds, as it were. Steve Nell's two franchises, the now newly renamed Bespoke Guardians Swindon Wildcats, taking on the Leeds Knights. Now, the Knights, of course, have been something of a story across this off-season, with Steve Nell taking them over and Dave Whistle becoming the coach of the Leeds Knights. Of course, fantastic pedigree in British hockey, former Grand Slam winner. Coach is, aside from the fact that his two sons, Jackson and Brandon, have played in Britain now for a couple of years. Brandon, of course, will be playing for the Knights this year, while Jackson will with the Belfast Giants. But certainly this weekend, home and home series for the Cats are hopefully going to be starting to make a dent. Swindon, as we know, who are always pretty decent, always relatively strong. They do have a very strong-looking squad on paper. Do Swindon really interested? And I'm just pulling up bits and pieces to make sure that this is all working. Leeds likely to announce 2-3 signings before Saturday, I believe. Yeah, they're still great to see you in the chat there, Jamie. Great to see you there too, Andrew, as well. But yes, Emil Svek should hopefully be making his first appearance in a fan favourite Tomasz Malarzyński. Those two should be interesting to watch. Malarzyński, arguably. Joe Scott, fantastic. Nicely done there, Joe. Great. The banter is flowing already. If you don't follow any of the bits and pieces of NIHL Stats, NIHLstats.wordpress.com is Joe's website. NIHL Stats on Twitter is the address. So do make sure that you follow the stuff that Joe's doing. I believe he's got a preview series coming up. Got fans from the different clubs doing bits and pieces as well. So that should be really interesting to see some different perspectives on what the teams are going to do. But Swindon look like Swindon do. Swindon's strength on paper has never ever been doubted. They've always looked good on paper. It's that translation into real life that sometimes, particularly sort of from sort of 3 years ago backwards, was a real struggle for them. They of course did win NIHL 1 South, but I think but obviously we'll kind of see what happens. I believe Svek won't be available till the first. Certainly, Brexit, COVID, visas is all going to be it's all going to be a mishmash of things. For example, I know Alex, but you do kind of wonder how many whether teams are aiming for competitive games to get guys. Though for me, I'd be very much focusing on getting guys in as soon as possible. If not for this weekend, but potentially next weekend for the weekend of the 11th and 12th, because you want guys in, you want guys to have the opportunity to settle rather than having to settle in games that kind of mean something. And yes, admittedly, the Autumn Cup is effectively a giant warm-up tournament now for everybody because of the spring. So what we're going to see some very, very different sides. Swindon, though, like I said, as much as anything to kind of see how those guys. See how those guys kind of do in terms of translating what was an okay but not a great performance in the streaming series into something a bit more concrete, something that can kind of really push on. I'm just going to use the phone to pull up the Elite Prospects site because the streaming is taking up all of the power of my computer, unfortunately. So I'm not going to try taxing that any further than I need to. We'll just press the button there. Swindon Wildcats. We don't want Cats 2. Let's just go for Cats 1 for these signs. So certainly the Knights did announce a few guys today as well, I was aware of. But you look at Swindon, certainly once again up front is going to be the massive thing for those guys, as well as this new link up that Swindon are going to have with the Bristol Pitbulls. The Pitbulls, of course, coming home for the first time in the better part of a decade. They'll be at the New Planet Ice Rink in Bristol. But they've signed up with Swindon in terms of development of some of those players. So there's going to be some younger guys who are possibly going to feature a little bit in pre-season, who are going to be, training with the Cats, doing things with the Cats, but getting their game time in Bristol. So hopefully we're going to see some of those younger lads like Bailey Hine Pitcher, Oliver Endicott. Of course, those guys are on to very, very stacked, because Bedbris is back at the Ling Centre after some time away. Obviously, some of the familiar names like Sam Bullis is back, Chris Jones is back, Malazinski we've already mentioned, Aaron Nell, of course, will be playing on another year. Aaron Nell is not an old man by any stretch of the imagination. You chuck in some of those other guys, Reed Sayers, who, along with Jack Goodchild, had a really, really solid Spring Cup. Those guys did very well. Bant Pacozzi is back after his spell in the Elite League. Am I right to believe Bison had just 1D announced? No, Jamie, the Bison are currently 5/6, depending on how you want to announce it as D. My belief is that tomorrow's signing for the Bison will be their last, and it will be a forward. So we will see very much which one it is. To be honest, you can probably work out who it's likely to be, given who hasn't been announced as signing for the Bison. I'd be very, very shocked if it's not who I think it is. But no, the Bison have got 5. The Bison are currently at 5/6D. Currently with the Bison, you have Jones, you have Adam Jolly Stone, and oh my God, I've just said that on everybody's name. Gone straight out of my head. Oh dear, I've had a really bad day. As you can tell, Jay King is your 5 there. So Jones, Dewey, King, Baird, and Stone. And then we have been told that Liam Morris will be a utility player for the Bison. He's going to be playing stints in both forward and D across the year, kind of as required. Either way, kind of like going back to Swindon up front, they do look stacked. Svek, Svek has some okay numbers rather than some great numbers, but has been proven that the right guy in the right place at the right time can do some real damage for in British hockey. And you look at where sort of Svek's been. He's had some decent numbers in Poland the last couple of years with Podhala Novi Targ. Had a decent enough season as well with Krakow. I still love the fact he played for the fantastic named EV Moosburg in Germany in the German fourth tier, which is just a fantastic name for any hockey club. But where do the Cats land? What do we think about the Cats? For me, their D is always still, for me, kind of the question. Tyler Palouse is back. He had a really good year. Sam Smith is now on board full time with the young man. Obviously, it's, a 2001 year date of birth for Smith. He's got plenty of time to develop. The really interesting question, of course, for the Cats is the fact that you have 3 netminders in the system now. Dean Skins joining up with Michael Crisp and Rennie Marr. I still maintain that Rennie Marr is probably still arguably the best keeper in terms of ability in the league. And I've got into a lot of trouble with some people for not being a fan of Brad Day. But for me, I do think that Marr is definitely one of the best ones. And actually, probably the one thing that maybe has hindered the Cats in some ways is not being able to rest Marr enough. Marr is good, and he has had the ability in the past to play 50-something games. But when you're able to bring in a veteran presence like Dean Skins, as well as having Michael Crisp around who has the experience of backing up and coming into games in this level, if somebody like Skins isn't available, or if Marr gets injured, you've got guys immediately able to rotate into the lineup. Dean Skins, even though he is getting on a bit, he's the same age as me, but he is no slouch. He knows what he has to do. He can be that older, more experienced head to help lead guys through, and also having him in the Swindon system to, work with some of the younger goldies maybe coming up, whether it's with OHA, whether it's with the Wildcats juniors, it's definitely nothing to be sniffed at. But probably it's well worth, like I say, having a look at the Knights. Because, like I said, they definitely did make in terms of the big in terms of who they are. Because there's one name that's very much on the lips of everybody because of how good he is. Lightning have 3 more to announce. One on Friday, last 2 likely a week later at the Meet the Players open training thing on the 10th. Both imports to announce, plus likely Dr. Russ. Indeed, well, yeah, I'd be very surprised if Russ Cowley isn't back. He's not. He normally would say if he isn't playing, so it wouldn't shock me if it is Russ Cowley. But certainly the Knights, their 3 signings that they've announced today. Bobby Streetley is back on D for the Knights, and also back Ethan here. Here, I don't know how you pronounce that. I say here because it sounds fun. But either way, Ethan, he's very good. I like him. But the other big name joining on D is Archie Hazeldine, leaves the Nottingham Lions to join the Leeds Knights. for anybody who watched the NIHL One's North streaming series, the two big names that were spoken about from that Nottingham Lions team were Jack Hopkins, who of course has gone to join on a two-way between Telford and the Nottingham Panthers, and Archie Hazeldine, who, again, superb young defenseman, brother of Joe, of course, he's going to be playing in Manchester this year. 17 years old, 6'3". So not only has he got size, but his size is going to grow into and get better at using. If nothing else, Hazeldine as well. When you look at it from a defenseman's perspective, you think of the two competitions the Lions played into the North Cup to start with, and that's sort of the NIHL One, the second cup, not the Rocket Stock Cup. That was the South. There was the sort of the Northern Cup they had. But he had 7 points in 6 games in the first competition, and then 11 in 8. 11 in 8 in the first competition, 7 in 6 in the second competition. Hazeldine from defence is no slouch. If they need to get some points on the board, he's a very, very talented young man. Really excited to see what he can do in a Knights back line that isn't completely as solid as you'd kind of want it to be. It's got some very good players in it. Jordan Griffin, of course, has come across into that side as well. Otherwise, it's aside from Sam Zajac, of course, the original coach of the Chiefs, who's now going to be playing under Dave Whistle. But that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 7-man D unit, and yeah, there's some good names in it. But I do wonder about it. Well, you've got Lewis Baldwin, Jordan Griffin, Archie Hazeldine, Ross Kennedy, Ben Solder, Bobby Strictly, and Sam Zajac. Now Solder is on a two-way with Manchester, so he will be how much he'll be with the Knights remains to be seen. Eventually, he's probably going to be with the Knights more than he's with the Storm, but he'll certainly be training with the Storm. For me, that defense is okay rather than amazing. I don't know what you guys think about that. I think it'll be interesting to see them against this quite high-powered Swindon offense. As well, also from the looks of it with the Knights, they haven't announced a second netminder yet. There's only Sam Gospel on the roster, and Gospel was without a doubt the MVP of the national division last time out. So it would be insane not to think that the Gospel is going to carry the load for the Knights in their re-debuting season. But you've got to give him some help, and that D is hopefully kind of built around Gospel's strengths. You can have a defense that's good rather than great if they are tailored very well to your netminder. Up front, it feels a bit Hull. I mean, aside from the fact you've got Matty Davis, who's going to carry the bulk of the load, they've got some very good solid guys there who are on two ways with Brandon Whistle on a two-way, Cole Shudra on a two-way. Kieran Brown, of course, into the lineup now. Adam Barnes is back after having a stonking first year with the Chiefs, and then performing really well for Widnes in the various streets. Score a lot of goals, but maybe not stop a lot of goals. And that's maybe where we're kind of falling on that one. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think in the chat? Some thoughts and feelings on the Knights, on the Knights and on the Wildcats. I've mentioned this probably just goes as a home and home split. It's pre-season. I don't think you can particularly expect too much of anybody or anything that's going on. Certainly, I'm not going to sort of over egg the pudding too much, kind of based on what we see. Though obviously the indications will be nice. So often I read what people will say to me, who do you think is going to finish where in the table? And I'm like, it's just August is finished. Like, we don't know. We haven't seen anybody. For those of you who missed it as well, just quickly checking some bits and pieces. Matt Myers has headed back to the Nottingham Panthers after his time in Cardiff. So glad that Matt Myers has managed to find a spot. That's good for him. I did wonder whether an NIHL side might actually chuck some stuff in there and maybe get him to take a step down, but has not happened. Knights D strikes me as solid and spectacular. Have something that is key in two guys who scored well last year in Zajac and Kennedy. I mean, that's fair. And Hazeldine, of course, he chucked into that mix as well. Andre, who has a penchant for scoring, though. I'm interested to see how he gets used, being so young. Solder is still somewhat of an unknown. Interesting what he does in the games he plays. I think Knights will be competitive in mid-table. Swindon, of course, will be gunning for the title. Yeah, very much so. I've been speaking to somebody who feels that Swindon are favourites for the title. I personally am not so sure. I think people keep writing. People I've said have not been very high on Telford, despite having not been high on Telford, and then Telford won the title because they're just ludicrously consistent. And Telford have tweaked a few bits there that I think will solve them well. Otherwise, if we scoot across into the other games that are definitely happening this weekend, the two teams who officially don't have a location, the Bees and the Raiders. Those guys are going home and home this weekend. I believe I have just lost it there. I was pressing the buttons to look at it. Where are we? We are in Slough on the Saturday and then Romford on the Sunday. The Bees, for me, I don't know. This team needs to be more than the sum of its parts, I think, to really make a dent, this B side. I'm not hugely convinced at the moment by it. There's a few gems definitely in this side. I think the tandem of Adam Goss and Curtis Warburton in net is huge for the Bees. How much will we see Warburton? You'd venture more than goodbye versus the world. Yeah, potentially. You venture that Warburton is going to spend a lot of time with the Bees. He will be called up if there's injuries in Sheffield, but otherwise you venture he'll spend a lot of time there. For me, Adam Goss has not ever quite sort of settled as he should have done. He has always looked a little bit shaky for me since coming to the Bees. The D, I mean, you've got a 5-man D for Bracknell. Ed Bradley, Luke Jackson, Josh Kelly, Stuart Morgan, Harvey Stead. The idea for me, like I know a couple of those guys in that lineup, and they are very, very good guys. But that D is gonna have to do something special. For me, they're a D light, and I potentially, if I was Doug Shepherd, have gone with 6D and 10 forwards rather than going 5 and 11. But maybe you guys can sort of move around. Up front, very interested to kind of see how other guys who've done well in those sort of streaming series for them, what they're going to do with a slightly different role now everybody is back. Bailey Harewood, Juha Lindgren, who's looked very, very good. Obviously, they've got this new import Bracknell in Niklas Sandberg Ernmarker. So he should be an interesting one to see. Of course, Mikey Powell's been added to that roster as well, as is Gary Simpson. Those guys were added off of tryout contracts, as well as some of the familiar names. Ryan Webb, very solid. Josh Smith, very solid. James Galazzi is back for another year because why not at this stage? Up front, there's a couple of names there that can do something, but I don't know about the Bees. I'm a little bit concerned as to the Bees for me are going to be fighting for a playoff spot rather than fighting for the title. For me, so it's between Lightning, Tigers, Wildcats, and Steel Dogs. I'd be worried if I was a Bison or Phantoms fan. Here's the thing with both of those teams that you mentioned there, Jamie. From a Phantoms perspective, they almost come into the season as a complete unknown because there's no Ferraris anymore. And irrespective of whether you like Peterborough style of hockey or you don't, they've always had a propensity to really play Slava's system and play it really well. How they will do that with a different leadership group on the ice remains to be seen. Certainly the forwards, I get what you mean. It is different, but you chuck in what sort of an X factor Morgan Clark Pizzo will be. Yes, he's young, but he's got a lot of talent and he could really make an impact. You've got guys like Nathan Pollard really stepped up that last season. They've got a lot of good depth at centre, actually, I think is the thing. And the one thing with the Phantoms is puck possession and being able to absorb pressure. You've got Padlek who can score at the drop of a hat, although at the moment, technically, they only have one import announcer. Maybe they'll announce somebody else. I don't think McEwen counts as an import at the moment. Spears can score. Padlek can score. McEwen can score. Johnson and Billing can put up some numbers. Weldon will always find a way to score. Will Weldon, King Rat himself. The D, again, is probably where Peterborough's strengths are. And if they're going to win games 2-1, they're still going to win them 2-1. Because you look at the moment as well, insanely, they're listed as having 8D. If Clark Pizzo turns up and plays like Craig Scott did with he first came over, they're laughing at us all again. Yeah, potentially. But you look at, I mean, Billy Thorpe is not going to play loads for the Phantoms at this juncture. You venture as a junior, so 7D effectively, of which they have Tom Norton, who is superb, Callum Douglas, who is superb, Joe Gretton, very versatile, Scott Robson, who is very decent, Bradley Bowering came along quite well during that last campaign as well. Tom Barry, of course, has joined from Sheffield. He's solid, if unspectacular. Don't think they've had it replace the Ferrari, so it's a massive hole to fill. Yeah, no, and I think there's definitely an argument about that, Jamie, that who is stepping up, who is filling that gap. You venture Norton becomes captain. I think I'd be very surprised if he's not. But and they still have Jordan Marr, who I don't think is as good as Rennie, but still a very good netminder. And the Marr Bainborough 1-2 punch is very good. From a Bison perspective, from a Bison perspective, apparently Philip Martinek is missing a British permit, so most likely missed the first few games this month. Probably like a lot of imports. Yeah, I suppose maybe so, Dan. I don't know. There's a lot still being kind of like worked out for that. The thing with the Bison, as somebody who obviously watches the Bison, Banners on the Wall has always been very Bison focused from a right perspective, and that's not going to change. From a Bison perspective, I'm not that concerned because, and I said it about the Bees, that Bees team is going to need to be more than the sum of its parts to be successful. The one thing Ashley Tate has been very, very good at getting Bison team to be is more than the sum of its parts. Now, I don't think there are 5 teams better than in this league than that Bison side. This Bison side, I think, probably should finish in the top half. Martinek and Roberts' performances will be key, as well as some of those other tweaks, because you think about, if you look at the Bison as a line down the middle and you work it out from centre outwards as to where you go, Tate is your top line centre, Harding is your second line centre. Arguably, then you can kind of like toss around a little bit as to who becomes your third line centre, whether it's Ryan Sutton, whether it's Hallam Wilson who can play at centre, whether potentially you try something a little bit different and maybe chuck in like a George Norcliffe into centre. Not my ideal, to be honest, but from a Bison perspective, they have options down the middle, and you kind of work out where you go, because what you have, and certainly the one thing that Ashley Tate's always had, is having a lot of wingers who can play in, fix in to different parts for doing the different jobs. So you think about Aizens for like 20, 30 points, right? He can play top line, and he can do that sort of out and out scorer. He can play second line, do more support. He can go on of the herd, potentially sticking out a third line maybe of Norcliffe, maybe if he signs Alex Sanford and Aidan Downsey. You think about what Alex Roberts plays. Does he? And I've mentioned it in the pieces. Does Roberts play alongside Tate and just basically take the feed off of him and snipe every 5 seconds, or does he do a bit more of a more physical job on a line with Harding? Does Martinek play alongside Tate, being that sort of like Michael Kleiner style import, kind of doing a lot of passing and feeding for those two with each other, and then it doesn't matter who you stick on the wing. Zach Milton gets thrown into that mix. Now, Milton did not have a particularly good streaming series, but sort of let back loose and given some jobs to do. Or do you play? Do you put Milton with Harding? Do you put Milton maybe alongside a Norcliffe and have an option there? I'm less worried about the Bison in the sense that, firstly, I'm kind of happy to have everybody back. For me, the big question with the Bison is the defense. The bigger question there is that you have 5 out and out D, and then Liam Morris, as we've discussed, is going to be moving between the two. You think, though, that aside from the fact that Alex Messam is a very, very good netminder, Messam was, even though I didn't nominate him for him, I felt was deserved in terms of his individual performances for being netminder of the year last time out. Jones, Stone, King, and Dewey know how to work with him, and Brendan Baird can learn. Brendan Baird is a much better player now than when he was last in Basingstoke. Let's have a look at the chat quickly. Talbot Norris, big loss for the Bison, though, and a big plus for MK. Getting was a good signing as one replacement. Yeah, I think the thing with Talbot and Norris, aside from the fact that reportedly they had agreed to come back and then went to MK, the thing with Milton Keynes, and actually let's get the Milton Keynes roster up just while we're chatting. But like I said, I'm not massively worried about the Bison. Bison for me are a top half team. I think people always seem to make a bit of a mistake about underestimating the Bison because there's fewer big flashy names in it, and I would like people to keep making that mistake. For me, MK up front have a ton, but the D is a question mark, and the net minding is a very hull. MK look hella hull, like lots of goals, and the D being a bit strange because like JMO's another year older. Griffin is decent. Ross Green is Ross Green, Ben Russell. These are solid guys. That D looks okay. But the net mining is a calculated risk on this front for me. Matt Smittle, 100% deserves a chance again at this level, having backed up in Swindon for so long and then gone to Slough and just gotten stupid numbers in terms of net mining. And if you're going with that 1-2 punch of Smittle and Stones, neither of whom are established starters at this level, especially when guys have been on the market here. Is Smittle class an import, Dan? No, he's not. Smittle is British trained, very much British trained. He has a Czech flag, of course, on Elite Prospects because he is the son of Lucas. I think he was born over there. I'm sure Joe Scutts will correct me if I'm wrong. I'll quickly pull up Elite Prospects as to where he was born. Yeah, he was born in the Czech Republic, but he's very much British trained. Dan Matt Smittle counts as British. So that itself is not an issue. And even as well, Edgar Landsbergs, who was the Latvian junior who MK announced, he spent a couple of years in Coventry's the Coventry Blaze Youth system. So even though he's got a Latvian flag by him on Elite Prospects, he doesn't count. Liam Stewart doesn't count either. He is also British. Sean Norris, I'm interested to see for some reason, has a Polish flag by his name. I didn't know that. That's very impressive. Oh no, Czech flag. Apologies. I assume that's potentially due to because of the time he spent in the Czech system. Yes, he did have a couple of years in the Czech system, didn't he? Well done him. So they should have. So yeah, I believe Jamie mentioned it in the chat, Dan. If you scroll back, that MK are going to announce a couple more imports. Landsbergs also came through OHA, which would also make sense. Nags and Griffin good on D for MK. Agree net money is the question mark for Lightning. Lots of firepower up front. If the net and also as well, if the net mining doesn't work, Andrew, who do they swap out to get somebody in? Because you may not necessarily be able to keep all of those guys up front. But don't get me wrong, MK look interesting. Without the imports, it's almost impossible to tell. Bobby Chamberlain being back, he had a really good streaming series. Very talented guy. Talbot and Norris, lots of young guys as well. Though you think Helen Barnes Garnett, who I love, he's really good fun. He's young. Callum Field on a junior contract. Zane McKenzie, young. Norris, young. Talbot, young. Stewart, not so young. Wishes he was. I will certainly look at an import D. My worry is lack of physicality on an MKD. So I only worry about the MK. So I still think, Jamie, you need to worry about your net minding. I think it's great that Cliff is giving those guys the chance. I don't necessarily. I worry that they buckle under the pressure. I think it's probably my concern for them on there. But I did say this as well. They recently on Twitter at BannersOTW. It's a calculated risk when you've got that much firepower. Hull won a playoff with arguably like the worst defense and the worst net minding in the Ash Smith. Love him, he's a try. I mean, we were talking about the bees and the Raiders, and that went straight out the window. So let's actually just have a quick look at the Raiders, of course, because they some very always some interesting names that pop up there. I know they've recently had their sort of meet the players thing as well. Interestingly as well, though, when you look at that net mining, I feel a solid goaltending duo is key this season with the amount of solid offense around the league. Yeah, I think I would agree with that one, Dan. I think there's a lot of good net mining, there's a lot of good attacks, but I don't necessarily think anybody's got the D quite right. Maybe Telford's looks pretty decent, and we'll get on to Telford in a minute. But yeah, certainly the Raiders, lots of familiar names, lots of guys back. Of course, a few people have moved on, and even then, still like a 6-person D. Dan Scott, if he stays fit, is going to be massive for the Raiders this year. He's going to need to be, because that D looks interesting. They do, of course, have the drop out of the forward lines and play on D. You're going to need big years out of guys. So they've obviously had Rhea Grinnell-Park, who's gone and joined the Raiders this year. He's going to be lent on for a lot more offense there than he was in MK, you'd feel. But you look at some of those really good, solid names: Brandon Ailiff, Aaron Conley, of course, who I'm a massive fan of. You would probably JJ Pitch there as well. So that should be a lot of fun. I feel confident in Brandon Stones to do a good job. MK fans will say he outperformed Lord A 1920. I'm not sure I'd agree with that. But like everyone says, Smith deserves a shot. Smith 100% does deserve a shot. Stone looks very promising. It does look promising. I think the issue, like I say, the issue for me is that neither is an established starter. And when your D is I do wonder, especially with a lot of youth up front as well. Yeah, aside from the fact that we're expecting Ross Cowley to resign, he's going to feel like he's babysitting his entire roster up front. I think the thing is, for me, I've not been convinced by Brandon Stones yet. I'm more than prepared to be. And Matt Smith, of course, is coming off a couple of years in a lower level. Frankie Curtis, the new netminder Curtis Warburton, of course, played for the Steel Dogs last year. Had a very good game in basic, actually, where he shut the Bison out. Brilliant player. I love the style of Piatak. He's a great, solid and experienced import, which is probably why he plays alongside Aaron Connolly. That's a very solid top line for them. For me, though, again, like the Raiders are going to be fighting a playoff spot, I expect. But that said, Ethan James and Brad Windbank as a net mining duo, pretty good. I think if you put Ethan James into that a net mining slot at MK, for me, there's much less of a question mark about it than you do with some of the other guys that they've got there at the moment. But that is what it is. Who haven't we looked at roster-wise? We haven't looked at Sheffield, and we haven't looked at Telford. We'll leave Telford till last, as they're the champs. So have a look at Sheffield. Of course, winners of the National Division Spring Series, and virtually nobody back. A few guys back, obviously, quite a few changes. And obviously they've made out quite well out of the temporary demise of Hull. Sam Towner is there. Matt Bissonette is there. Lee Bonner is there. So we should have some. John Kirk, of course, has gone across. So Kirk playing back in Sheffield should be fun. I can see why Warburton has gone in some ways, because with Zimodra and Miles up there, Raiders lack quality, but they're hardworking, won't be an easy out. Very true. It's very, very much Raiders hockey, that style. But yeah, Finney and Zimostra as a net mining duo is pretty solid. You'd expect Dimmy to start, Finney to back up, but Finney has got the quality. This is why Warburton's gone somewhere else for a different style of experience rather than just being in Sheffield. I think getting him out of that Sheffield bubble will actually do him a lot of good. Up front, you've got Matt Bissonette, who will put up some decent points. The only import on the roster so far. But you add in some of those solid Hull guys, and of course the big one is Jason Hewitt. Like, the guy got 100 points last time out. He is going to be ludicrous again. Interested to see what the line combos are. Although supposedly this is the final roster for the Steel Dogs. They've said that they've announced everybody. They have 9 forwards, and that feels a bit light. I know Ryan Johnson can step out and play as an extra forward, so they can roll 10 and 5. But for me, the Steel Dogs are just a body too light. Like, there's a lot of good, solid guys there. You think that maybe, but where do you necessarily put everybody? Firstly, according to this, I have 3 lines and 5 centres. That'd be fun. Where does everybody play? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, sorry, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 people who can play centre. So lots of line swapping. What do you think of the team signing Tom Ralph in D after having a year out? Well, loads of people have had a year out, Dan, so he's going to be absolutely fine. I think the big thing for Tommy was staying close to home, of course. I know he obviously left the Bison, so he wanted to concentrate on his business. For those of you who don't know, Tom Ralph is the owner of the Whittington and Cat. It's a pub in Hull. It's a very good pub in Hull. So he wasn't going to play anyway. If anything else, he's a year rested. Lack of numbers is why Steel Dogs went with the league. Talented squad, but one injury and clutching at straws. Very, very much so. The thing, of course, with Sheffield is that they've got a fantastic junior system and the Scimitars and the Titans below them. There's not a lack of bodies that will come in and fill the gap. It's the quality of those bodies that come in, and then what do you do? Because if one of those guys falls down up front, you've got a Ruskin Hughes who can step in and do something there. Does Greg Wood come off the bench? I don't know. Probably not in that sense. But there's I think that's the thing with Sheffield. Like I say, they'll never lack for a body necessarily, but they might lack for quality, and that will be and that will potentially be where they have an issue on that front. Just sort of skipping past. I accidentally clicked on Lubomir Korhon's elite prospects thing there. So that's that is a ton of fun. There's a name for you. I know that's both us as well. For me, the Dogs will be mid-table. I'm guessing. I'm not really sure. Craig Elliott's on the shims. He could be called up. Yeah, exactly. It's not that there's guys who are missing. Anyway, let's look at Telford. Let's have a quick look at Telford. He says, having managed to click on Sheffield again. Thank you for that. Fat fingers. No, not the Wildcats. Every time I go to click on something, the page moves. So massive thank you there. Instantly Prospects going to shaft me and say I've looked at all my pages now. But in terms of so Dominic Florin was a solid import too. Always like looking, he hasn't signed on for anyone yet. No, but he may well have just decided to stay at home. There's probably a variety of factors. Telford have obviously tweaked a few things, having won the title. Obviously, they've got some names back. Jonathan Weaver still going, not sure how. But there's not been a massive amount. It's more just been little tweaks. Ross Connolly coming in was an interesting one. Deacon Fielder moving back to Telford was not a huge surprise. He wasn't massively used a bit closer to home. Anyway, but he did get to play alongside his best friend in Josh Kelly for a while, so that was really good. Up front, again, not tons of massive additions, but a lot of those names that kind of did that really did do the business for them, as well as kind of keeping some of those names on board from the streaming series. Austin Mitchell-King stays. Joe Aston is there. Finley Howells, who was fantastic, is there. Mackenzie, McKinney, all of those names. Jason Silverthorne, of course, is back as captain. Harris Weaver back. Gaffer Tate, Newcastle Brown, and the tears of his enemies, and a fat wallet is also probably the answer there as well. But of course, yeah, like the really big names to mention, of course, Jack Hopkins has moved across from the Nottingham Lions. He's on that two-way with he's on that two-way with the Panthers, which is not surprising. If you've not seen Jack Hopkins, go back and watch some of the stuff from the streaming series on the Nottingham Lions YouTube page. That's going to be amazing. But the really big thing there for the Tigers is that bit of tweaking from a net-minding perspective. And for me, adding Jordan Lawday alongside Brad Day is good for two reasons. Now, I copped a lot of flack from Telford. And by Telford, I don't mean their fans. I mean the actual players. When Brad Day did not make the netminder of the year, bits and pieces, when Telford won the title. And I was really honest with them. And the conversation is actually still there. You can hunt it out on Twitter that I had with Scott McKenzie about it. And my issue with Brad, with the whole netminder of the year thing, was we were looking at individual performances. Was Brad Day the best individual netminder in the national division in 2019-2020? In my opinion, he was not. And he wasn't in the opinions of the other people on the panel who got a vote. For me, there is a weakness to Brad Day's game that gets exposed quite easily if you shoot right. Now, what ultimately happened with Telford was that there wasn't anybody there. Again, big issue with a lot of sides. One guy carries the team for 50 games, hopefully doesn't get injured, and you kind of roll it from there. Whereas actually what they've done now is they've given somebody to push Day. And Jordan Lawday, for me, is still one of the best young netminding prospects in the country. He's obviously not super young anymore, but he's still very good. He is very much a confidence guy. He needs to keep his head up and not worry so much, but he has a buttload of talent. And actually, the one thing you want, if you're wanting Brad Day to turn into to turn into that sort of like next tier level netminder in this league, he needs to be pushed. And actually having a guy like Lorday, even if Jordan Lorday only stays for a year, but Jordan Lorday hovering over your shoulder is hopefully going to focus the mind in a little bit more. The other thing as well, actually, that Jordan Lorday, and I know Brad Day does goalie coaching as well for the young ones, but certainly I hear a lot more about the quality of Jordan Lorday's coaching. And maybe that's just a Southern bias thing because Lorday lives down this way and I live down this way. But, you know, working together, I think as well with a slightly different perspective and somebody as well who is as good, if not better than he is, will really help Brad Day's netminding and might hopefully iron out the creases that are there in his game. That's not to say Brad Day is a bad netminder. You don't win league titles in British hockey by being a bad netminder. He is a good netminder, but he wasn't a great netminder. And I copped a lot of flack off of reports of complaints from the Tigers to the NIHL about the decision that we made on the Player of the Year panel, to the point where I said to the people from the NIHL, if they've got a problem, here's my phone number. And I offered it to them and never got a phone call. So I don't know what to tell you on that. But I think, I don't think there's as much of a question mark now over Telford's netminding as a result, because there's that 1-2 punch is massive for them. Where if one guy gets hurt or falls out of form, you've got equally as good a starter. The big question will come towards the business end of the year when playoffs starts looming and big title implication games start looming as to where and who gets that call. And you'd assume that Tom Watkins, being a sensible coach, is going to go with the hot hand on that front. Should hopefully be an interesting one. Jordan Lorday, height is an issue for me. Ultimately, was exposed in MK. No doubt in Jordan talented, but that will always worry me. The height thing for me, Jamie, doesn't mean anything. As somebody who watched Dean Skins win 3 trophies in a year, you can be a small netminder if you play well. I don't think it makes any difference on that. On the height thing for me is a massive misnomer. So don't worry. I feel I feel size for netminders is not an issue. Having like 6 defensemen who are all 5'9", probably an issue if you're a senior team. Less so if you're under 12s. But for me, yeah, the height thing with Jordan is not a problem. Jordan's it's a confidence thing. I think as much as anything else with Jordan Lorday. But I think he's I think him and Brad Day together should be pretty solid. For me, I think Telford again remain one of the favourites for the title as a result. But I think the big thing is for me, the team whose defence settles best first is probably going to do the best. I don't do predictions. Who else going to finish here? I can give like a general overall thing. Like I say, that B side for me is fighting for a playoff spot, not fighting for a title. You can make some reasonable assumptions, but until that puck hits the ice, folks, we don't know. We don't know diddly squat. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, we've been quite national division centric. I'm aware we've been going for like nearly an hour anyway. So we'll. What I'll do is, rather than worry too much about Div 1 and Div 2 tonight, sorry if you've tuned in for that, but anything else anybody kind of wants to chuck in the chat. We always do this as well on the What's Current stream. We get to the end, we kind of cover the big points, and we throw in we sort of throw the doors open and chuck in any other extra hockey bits anybody wants to talk about. Chat's been very active tonight though, which is really good. Lorday's been doing a lot of work in the off season, so it's going to be interesting to see how / if he's developed. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of coaching the kids as well. So that is no doubt going to have some sort of impact. Hopefully, I hope for him he has a good year. I always wonder why he never signs in basically, so I'm sure there's a reason why. But be tons of fun one day if we could bring him home and let him play on home ice. That'd be lots of fun. We're just going to very, very quickly. The Bees new import looks good. Be interested to see how he plays. Yeah, new imports like that are fantastic. Absolutely nothing about them apart from numbers on a piece of paper, and it always makes it interesting, Frankie, to kind of get some idea as to what they're going to be chucking out. I'm really excited to see him play. I know as well, Saturday at Slough, Bees versus Raiders, I believe it's £5 tickets to get in. So if you're nearby and you fancy some cheap hockey to get back to, then roll on with that. London expecting a huge crowd for next Saturday for the Ashes clash with Potty. We're pushing 2,000. That's great to hear. Hopefully everybody will be back in. I think probably certainly the big thing I would say for anybody going back to hockey in the next couple of weeks is please follow the guidance you're given from the rink about COVID bits and pieces. This pandemic has not finished yet. It is great to be back. It's going to be fantastic to see everybody. But please just be sensible and be respectful of other people. Like, it has been a really tough 18 months. Don't get me wrong. I think I worked out it'll be 547 days between games for the Basingstoke Bison when they eventually take back to the ice on the 11th. But there's a lot of people who are coming back into this who will want to be there, who'll be nervous, scared, anxious. People will have had jabs, people have not had jabs. And hey, spoiler alert, even though this is a hockey stream, get your vaccine. It's not going to kill you. It's safe and it's sensible to get it. Take one for the team. Don't be a douchebag, okay? I'm going to say that, and I don't care if you don't like it. But please attempt, when you're there, to not just completely cut loose. Just be a bit more respectful of people around you. First rule of progress, Anthony. Very much so, Joe. It is very much the first rule. Don't be a dick, folks. It's really, really simple. I think certainly though, remember as well, Div 1 and Div 2 fixtures are out. If you get the opportunity to go and check out some hockey, please do. It'll be lots of fun. I'm pretty certain Stratton have got Stratton playing this weekend. I have a feeling they were playing this weekend. 18 months exactly to the day. Can't wait to sit back even if we can't see the lines. So they might have actually bothered to paint them down. I don't actually know that one. Yes, they are. Streatham are at least playing at home against Romford Juniors this weekend. So that'll be a good game on the high road to get everything up and running. Really interested to see how Michael Farn does. Of course, Streatham took the time off. I do. Romford Junior Raiders. Good old Alan Lack. Hopefully he's playing. I do love Alan Lack. Good laugh. But yeah, it's been a long time coming for everybody. But yeah, just please, just be respectful of the people that are there. Think about the things around you. If the rink asks you to wear a mask, wear a damn mask. If you can, if you're not able to, then fine. But if you can, just be respectful of other people. I think that's really important to do so. If you can do that. I think the one thing, because we've done 52 minutes, so I'll do last call. Tony Smith discuss. I've already discussed Tony Smith quite a bit on Twitter there, Jamie. He said something idiotic. He got called out for it. He was wrong. He is wrong. He's objectively wrong. And he's anecdotally wrong as well. It is what he said is a nonsense, and I think a lot has been said about that. So we won't. The proof will be in the pudding in the NIHL and the performance of the British players this year. If Tony Smith wants to say stupid stuff, he can say stupid stuff. He's in a position to do so. But yeah, he is wrong. He's just wrong. There's no argument. There's no argument for it. The great bit of the EIHL is not a development league. Is used by people who want to abdicate the EIHL's responsibility as part of the structure of doing British hockey in this country. You can't expect players to turn up and be perfect and ready to roll straight away. Elite league clubs have to be involved. There's a lot of, there's the NIHL clubs and the junior system have their parts to play in this as well. The EIHA and the EIHL, are not the big bad wolf in this, but they don't do themselves any favours. They make it hard for themselves by sitting in an ivory tower and distancing themselves from the rest of British hockey. I don't think some people in the NIHL structure help that either by pushing them away, but ultimately all parts need to work together. But that does mean the elite league working with everybody else. They can't just sit in their ivory tower and hope things will come to them. And Tony Smith ultimately, like I said, is wrong. British players are entertaining and they are good enough. There's enough good players in the NIHL to play in the elite league tomorrow. They need to be given the opportunity to do so. The elite league are choosing not to do that. If they want to walk back down the road to the Super League, they can do that. They can do stupid stuff, and the NIHL will be there will end up having to be there to pick up the pieces again. I think there was a really good comment by Michael Farn, and I'll try and find it very quickly. Michael Farn, who, if you don't know, is the coach, former Milton Keynes player, coach of Streatham. But when Zach Sullivan was loaned from the Storm to the Devils to play in the CHL, and I think I've just found it here where Michael Farn tweeted out about this. He quoted the Devils article about Sully joining the Devils for this bit. Appreciate COVID has played its part in this, but amazing how quickly the Brits have dropped. quote, to cut costs, then always there to save the day when it suits. Because if we fall back down the road to the Super League, then that's where we're going to find ourselves. It's going to be British players having to fill all the spots again. The Elite League, British hockey, I've said before, has a tendency of somehow managing to grow without learning. But the Elite League manages to do without seeing. They are a massively short-sighted organisation. I said Tony Smith is so short-sighted he should be banned from driving a car. And I maintain that statement. Yeah, it's a bit hyperbolic and it's a bit facetious, but it's a short-sighted statement that he's been. Anyway, folks, 55 minutes we've been going for. So last call, my knee is stinging to high hell somehow. Like I said, it's ridiculous. I've been headbutted in the knee by a child, and somehow he must have just hit the absolute perfect spot where I'm having to sit with an ice pack on it. I'm struggling to walk. It's really bad. It's really stupid. But such is life. This is the life of a parent, folks. While people are tracking things in for last call, I'll chuck this out there just because it meant a lot to me. For those of you who are or aren't familiar, my hockey journey started in Germany, and it started with the Rostock Piranhas. I maintain my connection, and I maintain the fact that I am still a Rostock Piranhas fan, even though, of course, I can't get there as much as I would like to. But unfortunately, and for those of you who aren't aware, I am a sort of de facto associate, whatever you are calling, member of one of the fan clubs in Rostock, called Ostsee Power. If you ever see me hockey game, I always have a scarf with me, and that's my Ostsee Power scarf. That was given to me by a man called Klaus Langberg. And Klaus Langberg grew up in East Germany, and he was one of the when the Rostock Ice Hockey Club was founded after the wall fell, because the NIHL was founded in July of 1990 by an amalgamation of the hockey teams that were in Rostock at the time to make one club. And in December of that year, Ostsee Power was formed, and it is the oldest fan club of the NIHL. It's still it's still going, and it's still going strong. But when I went back after living in Germany, and the club found out who I was, and like the club, helped, like stumped up for my, they paid for my hotel the first time I went back. It's like a gesture for thanking me for supporting them from a distance. But the Ostsee Power guys took me under their wing, put their arm around me, and that scarf I have was given to me by Klaus. Now, Klaus has not been very well for quite some time, and unfortunately, he passed away. I believe it was yesterday. It was either late yesterday or early today, and he was 83. So Klaus was not a young man by any stretch of the imagination. But Rostock does and will always hold a special place in my heart, and the hockey club and the guys at Ostsee Power will always hold a special place in my heart. And I won't lie, after a run of quite tough days, because of work and like life bits and pieces, to have to read that today as well was quite sad. One of his sons passed away from cancer as well, not too long ago either, which was pretty shocking. And ultimately, in my early days of being a hockey fan, everyone called Klaus Opa, which is like a German word for grandpa, because he was just older than everybody else. And of course, his two sons were there watching hockey with him. But it'll be sad to think that the next time when I finally get back to the Eishalle Schillinghalle, that he won't be there. Whenever I saw him, I'd be away for like a year, 2 years at a time, to come back, and there'd just be a big smile and a big handshake and just a conversation about how I was doing, making sure I was okay, that it was good to see me, and those kind of things. And to think that he battled on for quite some time, having been really ill. And so, there's a bit of happiness that he's at peace, but obviously sadness that he's gone. There's a lot of very sad people today connected to ice hockey in Rostock. I am one of them. And so wherever you're watching, Klaus, that one's for you, my man. Keep watching up there, and hopefully the boys will do you proud this year. So rest tight, my man. Anyway, I called last call. Thoughts on the Devils CHL performance? Thought they were very good versus Lausanne on Saturday night. Yeah, they were awful. They were really bad against Mannheim. and then played really well against a much better team. Now, Lausanne looked slow, they looked sluggish, and I wonder maybe it was just that kind of thing of just getting your legs under you. Obviously, they had quite a rough game, and then were short benched as well against Lausanne, and maybe it's that kind of thing that hockey players do, where they just kind of go up and above themselves when the chips are that kind of thing. But they looked good, Devils looked okay, looked good. Good goal for Sam Duggan. Always pleased to see that. But remember, British players don't don't entertain, obviously. Not really a question, just want to say nice to see you back. And more importantly, see you next month when I take the stats on you. Take stats on. Lovely. Thank you, Joe. It's good to be back, man. It is going to be good to be back. It's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, the big thing that we have with the What's Current stream is we are going to be back now Wednesday nights when I'm not hopefully injured. Back on tour, there we go. Hopefully not injured, and we'll be back next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. regular time slot, and that's what we're going to do. Certainly, it's been a long time coming, and I genuinely don't know if I'm going to believe that it's back until the puck goes down on that first game, and I might cry. I don't know what I will do, but it'll be good. And we've struggled and we suffered, and something that means quite a lot to us wasn't there in the form that we usually consume it, and that's been tough for a lot of people. So I kept saying through the pandemic that we are going to get there, and we did, and we're there. So if you're going to a game on Saturday or Sunday, enjoy it. For those of us who have to wait till the next week, we'll have to just sit out another week. What's 45 minutes? What's 7 days after 18 months? Thank you for that, Dan. That's very kind of you, mate. We'll see you there. We'll call it, as we've been going for an hour. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the Bison. We'll wrap up the last couple of signings after the Bison's announcement tomorrow morning. It will be good, so don't worry about that. The back catalogue of the BOTW podcast is on there as well. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com /podcast. The Facebook.com /bannersonthewall. Hit the like button to get all of our articles and stuff into your newsfeed on Facebook. That's always appreciated. But the best place to interact with us as well as anything else that we do is on Twitter @BannersOTW. Do let us know what you think of the YouTube setup. I'm interested to try it again a little bit more, but we may try as well on Twitter. We've got options, folks. We've got options. You know what we're like. The word on the fridge says finally. Finally, my friends. If you can't be happy, and if you can't be happy, then as always, especially still, please be safe. As my friend Scotty Woods would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe and so long till next time. Because by next time, hockey's back, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening.